Okay, guys, we are at our last video notes for chapter 25 and possibly for the year. Part of me is sad because we're done, but really more sad that we had to finish this year separate, all locked in our own homes and staying safe, which I'm glad we have been so lucky that very few cases have been in Barnes County and in Valley City, so I consider us very lucky. But yet, it's still sad because we have not been able to enjoy the company of ourselves or each other, and I know we all really enjoyed that having that time. But it is what it is. I feel like I say that a lot, but it is true. It is what it is, and you know what? We just gotta keep on trucking along and sounds like I'll see. Hopefully, we get to do a resource blitz at the end. I haven't heard for sure anything, but hopefully, we can see each other again. All right, so let's jump in. We just got done talking about the victory in Europe and the fall of the Nazi regime. Now we're going to jump over into the Pacific arena, and we're going to be talking about uh, World War II against Japan. Now, we all know we're going to stay on this map a little bit, and we're just going to kind of see how the advance of the Americans went. As you can see, right here is Pearl Harbor, where my mouse cursor is, and this happened on December 7th, 1941. This is the beginning of the war in the Pacific. Japan, the bombing of Pearl Harbor, brings us into World War II against Japan. After the Hawaiian Islands, remember, the Japanese felt like this was going to be a knockout blow for a long time, meaning that they would put us out of commission in the Pacific for a long time, and they would be able to do what they needed to do, conquer the territory that they want, the empire they want to build. But it was not the case. Literally, we go from December to June, which would probably be about 6 to 7 months. 6 to 7 months, and we were back up to full capacity. We were able to take on. Now, remember, we watched that little Midway video. Remember, we were outnumbered 2-1 at Midway. We were outnumbered 2-1. But you guys remember what the outcome of Midway was? Yes, you were right. We won. And I really just think, what if our first battle that we had, Battle of Midway, and we just got trounced. We got our butts handed to us. Do you think we would have been as successful in the Pacific arena? I don't know, but those are questions that I like to think about. What if? What if would that have led to a Japanese victory? Who knows? But yes, our first time out, Midway, we beat them despite being outnumbered 2-1. After Midway, we're going to kind of go southwest of the Hawaiian Islands, and we're going to be coming around and looping here. Some of these battles that we're going to have is the Battle of Guadalcanal, Solomon Islands, the Battle of New Guinea, and then the other ones that are going to be fairly important are going to be Guam, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. And we're going to learn a little bit more when we get to those about Iwo Jima and Okinawa. But the time that we're going to be spent fighting the Japanese is going to be a little bit longer than what we do with the Nazis. The Nazis, we kind of come in in 1944, in the June of 1944 on D-Day, and we're out pretty much a year later. Here you look at 1941, we're brought into the war, we declare war. 1942 is when we started having our battle, and we're still fighting. We're still fighting after June 1945, after Nazis. So we're going to dissect that a little bit more. And as we go on, you'll see we'll learn a little bit more. So fighting the Pacific, high casualties. The reason why there was such high casualties was that surrender was very dishonorable for the Japanese soldiers. They would rather die in the fight or commit suicide before they would surrender to the enemy. a lot of these islands, we went island hopping. I should have started with that. The idea was called island hopping in the Pacific. You'd go from one island to the next, conquering each little island. You'd start at Midway. Okay, we conquered that island. Now we're going to jump onto the next island. We're going to conquer that. And the idea was we would hop from island to island, getting closer and closer to Japan. The problem was, on these islands, Japan already had a stronghold. Japan had foxholes, they had tunnels, they had trenches. They were set up. They were to be able to play defense while we were playing offense. So just think of Normandy. Okay, D-Day. Our American and British soldiers are going up onto beaches under immense fire. That's the same idea what is happening on each island for the Americans against the Japanese. Europe, they only had to do it once to get on to the continent. In the Pacific, every battle was like that. Every battle was a storming of a beachfront under heavy fire, and then they had to break through that line of fire and slowly make their way up hillsides and through forests and get into foxholes and fight and ultimately get to where they need to be in order to take over this island. But that's why it was such high casualties, because the Americans, starting out each battle, were under very bad conditions. Very bad conditions. And when we were talking about the European front, we talked about the duck boats. If you're in the Wisconsin Dells, you can ride those duck boats, those amphibious vehicles. Well, they had duck boats in the Pacific, but one of them that was very popular was called these Amtraks. Okay, and as you can see the picture right here, this Amtrak is got the troops to ashore safely. It says, well, more safely. Trust me, there still was casualties and there still was fatalities, but this helped them get onto shore. This next slide kind of gives you some pictures. It was basically, essentially a duck boat, as you can see, that vehicle, that amphibious vehicle, but instead of wheels, it was on tracks. This allowed it to go over even rougher terrain than what that duck vehicle could. Now, Amtrak or Amtrak was stood for amphibious tractor. Their nicknames was Alligator or the Gator. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, wow, Gator or Alligator, that is a pretty good name or nickname for that. As you can see, it brought soldiers in, and it also, the bigger ones, could bring in military vehicles. Now, the first ones that they used did not have any weapons attached to it. But when they found out how successful it was getting equipment and people on board, onto shore, they realized, hey, you know what, this might be good, but we probably need to defend ourselves. So that's why they attached that. And it helped. It was successful, and they continued to use it. Now let's think way back when the Philippines fell to Japan. What did General MacArthur, when he had to leave because the United States said, hey, we'd rather get you out of there than have a really humiliating defeat with you being captured by the Japanese? What did he say to the Filipinos, the Philippine people? I will be back. Well, he fulfills his promise, and General MacArthur returns to the Philippines. So after the Battle of the Leyte Gulf, he does return. He destroys the Japanese Navy and takes back control of the Philippines. Philippines was a big loss to the Americans, or a loss to the Philippine people and the Americans when the Japanese took over it. So you can about imagine how big this was, us walking back onto shore of the Philippines and saying, America's back. Now, I know growing up, we have all heard of the word kamikaze, whether it is used in different ways. I mean, I'm even sure you've heard of kamikazes, like what World War II, what they did in World War II. And kamikazes were suicidal airplanes. Pilots, when they took off, they knew that they weren't coming back. They knew that they were going to die on this mission. They were going to die by driving or flying their airplanes into battleships. Kamikaze in Japanese means divine wind. They believed that this was an honor to die for their country, Japan. I don't know as much about the kamikazes as I know about Islamic beliefs, where some Islamic factions believe that if they die while protecting their religion, they are going straight to paradise or to heaven, like we would say it, or some of us would say it. I think kamikazes were similar to that. I need to read a little bit more about that, but they knew if you were a kamikaze pilot and you died in battle for your country, it was a very big honor. Your family was honored. I mean, it was a big deal. Even though you were gone, it still was a big deal. But how can you just think? I'm just thinking on the soldier's side, the American soldier side, on their battleships, and you look up and you see this airplane coming at you. You know exactly what it is. Will it take down the ship? I'm not sure. I've seen some pictures, I don't know if I've included it, but I've seen some pictures where on the, like, here's the battleship, and out there on the stern or the bow or whatever it is, there's a crashed ship or a crashed airplane, but there is not like it just like it was like a popcorn crinkles when you crush it. I mean, the little airplane looked crushed, but it didn't look like there was much damage to the battleship. So I'm not sure if sometimes they weren't very effective. I don't know. That's another thing I need to look at. When I teach this stuff, I think I have it all really good in my mind. And I'm like, okay, it's good. But then I start teaching you guys, and then these questions kind of prop up. And I bring them up, and I say them out loud to you because you guys may be thinking the same thing. And you may feel like, oh, you know what? Well, he's going to look. I might want to look too. It's up to you. But sometimes when I raise questions, it may make you think a little bit. So yeah, that was the kamikazes, the divine wind. And when I see that word divine, that means godly, that means heaven, that means. So I feel like they believe that was something divine, something that was holy in respects to their religion, if they would die as kamikaze. So I mentioned Iwo Jima and Okinawa. These were very, very, very important islands for America. First thing is, they needed to get a airstrip, a landing strip, airfield on an island close enough to Japan where they could launch their bombers. Okay, right now that was not capable. Remember the Doolittle raid? They were too far away when they took off. Okay, using a battleship to launch off was too dangerous because it proved to be dangerous in the Doolittle raid. They were caught by a Japanese ship. So if you're bringing in a bunch of battleships, you can be seen. Okay. Now, if you can get an island close to Japan, that's a little bit more secure. If you have secured and taken over that island, you got a better chance of having a surprise attack. Okay? Japanese know you're on that island, but they might not know when you're going to send off. So Iwo Jima was the first one that they wanted to get, and in Iwo Jima, as you can see, this is the picture right here. This is very common. There is a movie. Well, there's tons of movies. I'm sorry, I should take that back. Tons of movies about Iwo Jima. I have not seen the newest one, but I have seen an old one. It's called Iwo Jima, and it's with John Wayne. Very good. I don't know how accurate it was, but it was interesting and entertaining when I watched it when I was younger. This happened in the spring of 1945. It's not a big island at all, but they felt it was strategic because it was closer to Japan. It was a vicious, vicious fight. You can think about, just remember them climbing onto the beach, just like at Normandy. I mean, it was brutal. It was bloody. Lots of casualties. Clawing their way through the jungle up these ragged, rocky mountains where there is Japanese behind every rock or in trenches, and they are basically crawling and scrambling and clawing their way up to finally take and win this island. As you can see, the idea of how important this was, how symbolic this picture is, how these American men are up there pushing this. Just think of that. All of the sacrifice that went into that and to get that flag up. This was a huge win. This was going to be the island where they were going to put in an air base. But then they found out about Okinawa. Okinawa, I want to go back to this real quick. If you look here, Iwo Jima is right here, okay? And it's, they could launch an attack here, but Okinawa is even that much closer, okay? So ideas changed, plan changes, and they decide to build this off of Okinawa. Okinawa, again, was another same idea, landing on the shore of the beach, fighting their way, working their way through to take over the island. Here's some interesting, interesting information. Iwo Jima, 8 square miles. There was a landing strip, and it took 6 weeks to get, and 7,000 Americans dead. Okinawa, it took 2 months to get, 100,000 Japanese dead, and 12,000 American dead. Ultimately, we know that they decided to use Okinawa as a military base. So after they fly off of Okinawa, they're going to start firebombing Japan. Before, when like in Doolittle's raid and some other times, their bombs were not as accurate because a lot of that time the wind took the bombs off target. Okay, so they decided this time that they put napalm in these bombs. Okay, napalm is a gelled gasoline that is in these. So what happens, do you think, when it falls down and explodes? Yeah, that gel is going to explode everywhere, and if it's gasoline and there's fire, everything's going to start on fire. Okay, Tokyo was called the Wooden City. Why do you think they called it the Wooden City? Because it was made of wood. How well does wood burn, especially when there's gasoline on it? Yeah, it goes up in flames like that. Much of Tokyo was destroyed. Fires could get up to 1,800 degrees. Okay. Tokyo, about 15 square miles of Tokyo, was destroyed. 100,000 people. They estimated 100,000 people died in this attack. We got the Potsdam conference. Here it was a meeting of the Allies to set goals for the war in the Pacific. Okay, so after the war, so right now, Joseph Stalin is still there as the leader of Soviet Union. We got Harry Truman now because FDR has passed away, and Clement Attlee. He is he's not the prime minister. Okay, he is the assistant prime minister or admiral or something that he is there for Great Britain. Stalin promised to join the war in 3 months. Okay, so they knew that after. So right now, this is July 1945. Hitler's already done, right? Hitler's gone. War in Europe is gone. Done. So now Stalin agrees that, guess what? We will join the war in the Pacific in 3 months. After Truman hears that, he issues the ultimatum to Japan. And he says, surrender or else. That means that it was total surrender. The Japanese had to surrender everything. They couldn't wheel and deal. It was a total surrender. We'll talk a little bit about that when we get closer. Knowing that this was a total surrender, we'll just hold on a sec. So then August 6th and 9th, while I'm talking about this, I'm gonna play this footage right here. It's silent, so I'm gonna keep on talking while you watch this little footage. So keep your eyes open, but your eyes on this. Up. Wrong way. Sorry. Here. There. So Harry Truman was unaware that the United States had this capability of these atomic bombs. He did not know until he became president. There was lots of different theories out there on should we use them, shouldn't we use them, but ultimately Harry believed that, or Mr. Truman, President Truman believed that they needed to be used. Big thing was, a lot of people said that if we do a ground invasion of Japan, millions, hundreds of thousands of millions of, there'll be mass casualties of American soldiers. Now, whether that was going to be true or not, many people believe that. So in order to save American military and soldiers' lives, Harry and a bunch of other ones believed that it was the right way to use atomic bombs. So on August 6th and 9th, they were called Little Boy and Fat Man were the two names of the, you can see this is some of the casualties of the atomic bomb on this picture, on this video. Those were the names. They were dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And Hiroshima was first, and then Nagasaki. It was complete and utter annihilation of cities, of people. Nuclear bomb, there's after effects and all that stuff. And so, but this is ultimately, this is done to the Japanese. After Japanese see this, or, have this, and now Russia is starting to invade Manchuria, where Japanese had land. They're invading Northern Korea, where Japanese are at. The Japanese realize that they got Russia coming from the north. Russia's not going to be there to help them negotiate any terms. Russia's on the side of the Americans. There is absolutely no one that's going to be there to stand up for them. So therefore, the Japanese surrender to American forces, and VJ Day is September 2nd, 1945. What do you think VJ means? Right. Victory over the Japanese, or victory in Japan. As you can see, there is, this is an iconic picture. You see that everywhere. There's even pictures of it in color now. Go on YouTube, click on VJ Day video, and it will show you videos of people dancing in the streets. I mean, I have one that I wanted to show, but we're already at 23 minutes. Now, you know what? Let's go ahead. We can do it. So last slide here is a little picture. We probably won't write all of it, but I want you guys just to see the emotion. Oh my gosh. The emotion that is attached to this victory.
The day of days for America and her allies. Crowds before the White House await the announcement from the president that the Japs have surrendered unconditionally.
I have received this afternoon a message from the Japanese government in reply to the message forwarded to that government by the Secretary of State on August 11th. I deem this reply a full acceptance of the Potsdam Declaration, which specifies the unconditional surrender of Japan. In the reply, there is no qualification.
Reporters rush out to relay the news to an anxious world and touch off celebrations throughout the country. Washington is jubilant. And in Chicago, more than 1 million sing and dance in the streets in the biggest celebration the Windy City has ever seen. Joy is unconfined.
This video is called
4 o'clock Pacific
U.S.
time
Celebrates
at San Francisco
Japanese
when the
Surrender. So if you want to continue watching this, go onto
Victory
YouTube
Office is
and type in
more an
U.S. Celebrates
celebration.
Japanese Surrender.
But it was
It's
in
going to
that
be
city's
more of this. It's
Chinatown
very
where Victory
interesting.
Day was the most joyous.
I've found a plethora of, oh, this is the Chinese Americans excited and celebrating. Of course they're going to be happy the Japanese surrendered. They hate the Japanese. The Japanese went into China and overtook them. So yeah. Be careful when you watch YouTube videos, but a lot of these, if it's from like History Channel or some other noteworthy websites, they are very credible and they're very interesting, and they give out a lot of information. So again, thank you guys. I'm going to stop it right here. And thank you again. This has been a special year for me, and with being with you guys, and it had to happen like this on the end. But you know what? We all will prevail, and we will come out stronger on the other side.